Global News and Zoom on Nigeria. Thanks for joining me. The headline says NATO will protect members from Wagner in Belarus. 8 killed in Russian attack on Kramatorsk. After 2 decades, malaria detected in the United States. Israel-Palestine discuss West Bank chaos, and 14 security staff kidnapped in Mexico. Jens Stoltenberg, NATO Secretary General, has said the Western military alliance is prepared to protect itself against any threat posed by the move of Russia's Wagner mercenary force to Belarus amidst fears the relocation of the private army could create instability for NATO's Eastern European members. Yevgeny Prigozhin, Wagner boss, has reported to have arrived in Belarus on Tuesday under a deal agreed by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, which narrowly stopped the mercenaries from marching on Moscow on Saturday after the private army demonstrated against Russia's military leaders. Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda, after a meeting in The Hague with NATO Stoltenberg and government leaders from 6 other NATO allies, said if Wagner deploys its serial killers in Belarus and all neighboring countries face even bigger danger of instability. Polish President Andrzej Duda said he hoped that the threat posed by Wagner mercenaries to NATO will be on the agenda at a summit of all 31 members in Vilnius, Lithuania on July 11th and 12th. NATO Stoltenberg said it was too early to say what the Wagner presence in Belarus could mean for NATO allies, but that the military alliance will protect every ally, every inch of NATO territory against threats from either Moscow or Minsk. Since Saturday, Prigozhin has not been seen when he waved to well-wishers from a vehicle in the southern Russian city of Rostov-on-Don, which his fighters briefly occupied. On Tuesday morning, a private jet believed to belong to Prigozhin flew from Rostov to an airbase southwest of the Belarusian capital of Minsk, according to data from Flight Radar 24. Now on Russia-Ukraine war, 3 children among the victims of a Russian missile attack on Kramatorsk city in eastern Ukraine that has killed no less than 8 people and wounded thousands more. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has said the Western military alliance is ready to defend itself against any threat posed by the move of Russia's Wagner mercenary force to Belarus. Oleksiy Reznikov, Ukraine Defense Minister, said the liberation of a group of villages under Russian occupation in recent weeks was not the major event in Kyiv's planned attack. Lithuania is purchasing 2 NASAMS air defense systems for Ukraine as rescuers sift through rubble at the scene of Tuesday's missile attack on the eastern Ukrainian city of Kramatorsk. The death toll from that attack has gotten to 8, Ukraine State Emergency Service said on Wednesday. Earlier, Ukrainian officials reported 4 deaths. At least 56 others were wounded in the strike, including an infant, the emergency service added. On Tuesday evening, Ukrainian authorities said a Russian missile struck Kramatorsk's busy city center. The missile struck an area lined with apartment buildings, stores and cars, the Ukrainian Prosecutor General's office said. Restaurants in the AIM Plaza are popular gathering spots for residents and military personnel. The rescuers are dismantling the rubble of the ruined building and searching for people who possibly remain under the rubble, the emergency service said. On health matters in Florida County, officials have announced aerial treatment to kill mosquitoes after malaria was detected in the southern United States for the first time in 20 years. Noting increased disease activity in the area, Sarasota County issued a statement on Tuesday saying it would deploy airplanes and trucks overnight to spray pesticides as part of an attempt to stem the spread of the mosquito-borne disease. The stem comes a day after the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, issued a health advisory for malaria. While several of cases are reported each year in the U.S., mainly by travelers returning from abroad, the last time the country had a locally transmitted outbreak was in 2003, when 8 cases were reported in Florida. The newest cases were likewise identified in Florida, with a cluster of 4 patients identified in Sarasota County, south of Tampa, along the Gulf of Mexico. An additional case was found in Texas Cameron County, which is also located on the Gulf Coast. The Texas Department of State Health Services noted that the patient was a local resident who spent time working outdoors and had no recent experiences traveling out of state. The last time Texas reported a local incident of malaria, the agency said, was in 1994. Though the 5 patients in Texas and Florida have received treatment and are improving, The CDC cautioned doctors and residents, specifically in warm, mosquito-friendly areas, to be on the lookout for the disease. The CDC said it is in its health advisory on Monday, malaria is a medical emergency and should be treated accordingly. Israel-Palestine conflict. Yoav Gallant, Israel's defense minister, and senior Palestinian officials have deliberated violence in the occupied West Bank, with Gallant's office saying he offered reassurance about Israel's intention to crack down on Israeli settlers who have attacked Palestinian communities. On Tuesday, the announcement that discussions had taken place between Israeli and Palestinian officials comes amidst rising expressions of worries by the United States about the situation in the occupied West Bank and calls by the United Nations Security Council for all parties to work to reduce tensions, report said. Israel views with gravity the violence inflicted upon Palestinian civilians in recent days by extremist elements. Gallant's office quoted him as telling Hussein al-Sheikh, a senior official in the Palestinian Authority, Israel will exact full penalty of the law from the rioters, Gallant added, according to the statement, in which he described the calming of tensions in the occupied West Bank as being a common interest for al-Sheikh. There was no immediate comment from al-Sheikh's office. On Saturday, Israel's military, police and domestic security service chiefs issued a joint statement following a string of Israeli settler attacks on Palestinian villages in the former week, stating they will take countermeasures against what was described as nationalist terrorism. On Tuesday, the United Nations Security Council called on all parties to desist from unilateral actions that will inflame more tensions and urged restraints to stop further escalation. Members of an armed group kidnapped security forces in the southern Mexican state of Chiapas are searching for 14 administrative employees of the state security ministry. On Tuesday, the incident took place about 34.4 kilometers, 22 miles west of the state capital, Tuxtla Gutierrez, on the highway linking it to the town of Ocozucuautla. Those kidnapped were all men and worked in administration in a police station, the state security agency said in a statement. This has never happened before, a ministry spokesperson said, according to a report, adding that the motive for the kidnapping was being investigated. Both federal and state agents are involved in the search. Some Mexican news outlets released videos of the alleged kidnapping showing several vehicles stopped on the highway with their doors open and men in bulletproof vests pointing guns at the passengers in the vehicles. The state prosecutor's office said it was probing the authenticity of the videos, which also showed at least 3 trucks blocking a highway. According to reports, the armed men took the employees' mobile phones away and ordered them to lie on the ground. The women in the group were allowed to walk free, it added. Tuxtla Gutierrez is located about 700 kilometers, 435 miles southwest of Mexico City. President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, during a tour of Chiapas last Friday, minimized the violence in the area, saying that in general there was peace, there is tranquility in the state. The day before the president's visit, an official with the Attorney General's office was seriously injured after being shot in Tuxtla Gutierrez in an attack that killed the person who was with her. A confrontation between the military and presumed members of organized crime left an element of the National Guard and a civilian dead in Ocozucuautla on June 19th. And here are more stories. 2 Russian warships detected near Taiwan waters. On Tuesday, Taiwan has said it spotted 2 Russian warships off its east coast and sent its own aircraft and ships to monitor the vessel's movements. In a statement late on Tuesday, the Ministry of National Defense said the Russian frigate had been seen sailing from south to north in the waters off our eastern coast as of 11 p.m. local time. It added that they departed from our response zone in the southeasterly direction off the port city of Shawo, which is home to a major Taiwanese naval base. It did not say how far the warships were from the island's coast. Self-ruled Taiwan reports a near daily presence of Chinese vessels and aircraft operating around the island. Beijing claims the territory as its own and has not ruled out the use of force to achieve its objectives. The presence of Russian warships is more unusual, however. Reports from Russia on Tuesday said that a detachment of ships from the Russian Pacific Fleet had entered the southern parts of the Philippine Sea after crossing the South China Sea. The warships were performing tasks as part of a long-range sea crossing, which included a simulated naval battle to repel a missile attack of a simulated enemy from the sea, Interfax said. Taiwan has joined the United States as well as its neighbors Japan and South Korea in enacting wide-ranging sanctions against Russia following its February 2022 full-scale invasion of Ukraine. In Africa, Sierra Leone Bio re-elected amidst chaos. Julius Maada Bio, Sierra Leone's president, was re-elected to serve a second term with 56.17% of the vote, the head of the Electoral Commission said Tuesday, prompting the runner-up to categorically reject the result. Bio's main challenger, Sumara Kamara, who came second with 41.16% of the vote, according to final results announced in Freetown, branded the result not credible. I categorically reject the outcome announced by the Electoral Commission, he said on Twitter. Vote tallying had already been disputed by Cameroon's All People's Congress APC, which condemned in a statement Monday an alleged lack of inclusiveness, transparency and responsibility by the Electoral Commission. The party pointed to the lack of information about which polling stations or districts the ballots were coming from. It had said it would not accept this fake and cooked-up results. In a later statement, the party alleged overvoting in some areas and said it continues to reject the fabricated results and reaffirms our victory. Musa Thurlow said she was happy because her president was just re-elected. He's doing great things for this country. He is fighting corruption. At a press conference on Monday, European Union observers said a lack of transparency and communication by the Electoral Authority had led to mistrust in the electoral process. The monitors said they witnessed violence at 7 polling stations during voting hours and at 3 others during the closing and counting stages. Now, African leaders meet to tackle DRC tensions. The president of the African Union conceded today that the deterioration of the situation in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC Congo, destabilizes the country and defended efforts to make the country a source of happiness and not of conflict. Azali Assoumani, who was speaking at the opening of the Quadripartite Summit of Heads of State and Government on the pacification of Eastern DR Congo, taking place in Luanda, said that the prevailing situation is a concern of the region, the continent and the rest of the world. The deterioration of the humanitarian and security situation in the territory of the DRC is destabilizing this country, said Assoumani, stressing that this crisis is particularly worrying as it occurs in the territory with many undeniable economic and human reaches. For the acting president of the African Union, AU, the destabilization in Eastern DRC could lead all of Africa on the same path, thus defending the intensification of joint and active actions to reach solutions in favor of a peaceful and prosperous Congo. The need for pacification in Eastern DRC Congo, where military tension persists and this country opposes Rwanda, is the focus of the summit of heads of state and government of 4 African regional blocs. High-level representatives of the Southern African Development Community, SADC, the East African Community, EAC, the International Conference on the Great Lakes Region, ICRGL, and the Economic Community of Central African State, ECCAS, participate in the summit in Luanda. The strategic objectives of this summit are to agree on adapting a joint framework and modality for the implementation and monitoring of these initiatives for peace in Eastern DR Congo, said Azali Assoumani, also head of state of Comoros. The African leader recalled that the DRC is a country rich in diverse resources, but that the local populations live in extreme poverty, mainly because of the conflict, considering that the regional blocs must be actors of peace and stability. That's why we must put everything in motion to reverse this tendency to make the DRC a source of happiness and not a source of conflict, and that is why we have to play as actors of peace, stability and development, he emphasized. Azali Assoumani also saluted the Angolan president, João Lourenço, and the Angolan diplomacy for their efforts, engagement and permanent availability at the service of harmony and robust coordination of the security crisis in Eastern DRC. For his part, the president of the AU Commission, Moussa Faki Mahamat, said that the meeting under the aegis of the body he represents is a new testimony of his unfailing commitment to finding African solutions to African problems. I'll take a quick break, but before I go, President Bola Tinubu returned to the country yesterday to celebrate the Eid festival, and he said he's working hard to make Nigeria a better place. When I come back, I'll give you more on that. Stay with us. You're welcome back. Tinubu working hard for a better Nigeria. Yesterday, President Bola Tinubu said he was working day and night with his team to find solutions to the country's problems. In his message, President Bola Tinubu enjoined Muslims to show mercy and compassion to others. He acknowledged the challenges people were going through, but guaranteed that the hardship were not insurmountable as he was working hard with his team for solutions. He said, and I quote, "As we immerse ourselves in the joy of this moment and celebrate, let us remember those who may not be as fortunate like us. There is no greater sense of duty ever recorded in history outside the ennobling example of Prophet Ibrahim in offering his only son, Ismail, as sacrifice to Allah. The best way by which we can demonstrate this example is in how we conduct ourselves in relation to our fellow citizens and in our duties to our beloved country. We must imbibe and manifest those values inherent and complete devotion to God, tolerance, patience, perseverance, selflessness, love, and compassion. This season, let us endeavor to multiply good deeds with our kindness to our fellow Muslims and others by helping and supporting the weak and vulnerable in our communities. By so doing, we showcase the values and virtues of our faith. At the moment, our country is going through some challenges, especially with our struggling economy and smearing security challenges. While I acknowledge all of this, I want to assure you that they are not insurmountable. I'm working day and night with my team, fleshing out solutions. We have started with the decisions taken so far to reform our economy and remove all impediments to growth. As we embrace the present challenges, we must face the future with vigor and renewed hope, with the confidence that our tomorrow shall be brighter and better. And finally, on the news, irregularities marked 2023 polls according to EU. According to European Union Electoral Observation Mission (EU EOM), shortcomings in electoral law and administration hindered smooth conduct of the 2023 general elections and damaged trust in the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC). While presenting final reports of the EU EOM in Abuja yesterday, Chief Observer Barry Andrews said the mission also released 23 recommendations for consideration by Nigerian authorities with a view to reform in 6 priority areas. He said while Nigerians demonstrated commitment to democratic option, the electoral process exposed systemic weaknesses, signaling need for legal and operational reforms and enhancement of transparency, inclusiveness and accountability. The Chief Observer said priority recommendations are removing ambiguities in the law, establishing publicly accountable selection process for INEC staff, ensuring real-time publication of and access to election results, providing greater protection for media practitioners, addressing discrimination against women in politics, and preventing impunity regarding electoral offences. The EU EOM said it observed deceit and misuse of the power of incumbency by governors who tilted the playing field, leading to increased polarization and divisive rhetoric based on ethnicity and religion. Also, the mission observed over 1,000 pre-election court cases and more than 100 campaign-related incidents of violence, including assassinations. However, the federal government sought support of the EU in its quest to deepen and consolidate democratic practices. Secretary to the Government SGF of the Federation, George Akume, made the appeal while receiving an audience. The EU EOM delegation, led by Andrews in his office, while giving trajectory of Nigeria's democratic development, the SGF said the nation has enjoyed considerable improvement over the years, even as he appealed for support to consolidate on gains since return to democratic rule. He thanked the mission for participating in the 2023 elections across the country and emphasized the importance of the bimodal voter accreditation system (BVAS). Andrews said in furtherance of the report, EU EOM will have a follow-up mission of Nigeria after 2 years to engage authorities on implementation of the recommendations. Also speaking, European Union Ambassador to Nigeria and the Economic Community of West African States (ECOWAS), Samuela Isopi, said the EU has been supportive of the nation's return to democracy and has been working with INEC and other key stakeholders in bolstering democracy. She added that the EU is ready to sustain its support towards deepening electoral processes and invest in key sectors of Nigerian economy. Now, before I go on to bring you up to speed with top stories, NATO will protect members from Wagner in Belarus, 8 killed in Russian attack on Kramatorsk. After 2 decades, malaria detected in the United States. Israel, Palestine discuss West Bank chaos, and 14 security staff kidnapped in Mexico. That's all on the news. Thanks for watching.